whole thing with pigweed. So there was 1 year back in 2008, we didn't spray for 2 years. We lost both crops. Never got 1 cent of a return. All we ended up with was, I think it was 10 ton of pigweed. And you can't sell pigweed. So Health Canada says it's safe. I mean, I don't know what my brother-in-law, what we do without it on the farm. And we use it, you know, just on those 2 fields, which would be about 60 acres out of 350 acres. So it's very minimal. Thank you.
Sean? A green government, day one, would ban glyphosate spraying on Crown land, and the same with hydro right-of-ways, okay? So I'm one of these guys too that have skin in the game. So from a personal perspective, I have not and will not allow spraying on any of my woodlots. I do have an NV Power right-of-way on one of my woodlots, and kudos to NV Power, because when I've requested the 2 times that they have required clearing, they have done it manually, because I told them I did not want spraying on it. So what do we know about it for sure? I mean, there's, as Bruce mentioned, there's folks on real hard on both sides of the issue. We know there's industry studies that say if you spray as per directed, it's safe. You have other studies that say when they're using it in rats, they see a big increase in kidney and liver problems. So you're getting both sides of the coin. One is paid by industry, the study, and the other was not. So you can decide on whose study you want to believe the most. But look at our Crown land. So what are we using it for? We're using it to kill vegetation, period. And what does that do for us? That gets rid of most of our wildlife, and it brings us into a plantation situation in our forests, so nothing else grows there. Now, so what are we doing? We're taking money, sending it to the United States to buy poison to spray in our woods, when we have people that want to and need to work and will spend that money here in New Brunswick out as thinning crews. And personally, I don't know of anybody that has a thinning crew or that runs a thinning saw that has a corporate jet, that has an offshore bank account. I don't know of any of those folks. So that money stays here. So again, me, with most things, what's the best thing to do? Risk, reward. Well, we have a risk. So the reward is we put people to work.
Thanks, John. Okay, gentlemen, the next question, we'll be starting with Jim, and then we'll go down to Ian, John, Bruce. And it has sort of a high-level question with respect to control of private land. So the question that is posed is, what is the future of the personal control of private woodlot owners' properties? So that it would appear as though maybe they're reading between the lines, maybe the government policies in the future may put more restrictions on how private land is managed. I'm kind of reading between the lines. So if you have anything to contribute or put forward to this question, we can start with Jim, and then we'll go to the end down to Ian.
Thank you. I don't quite understand that question 100%, but if, to me, and I'm going to give you my personal opinion, if it's private land, it's your land. And I cannot see how the government can put restrictions on your land, unless, I suppose, if you're into a waterway or in the marshes or something like that, then yeah, there's restrictions there. But if it's outright private land, I can't see how government can interfere with that. And that might not be the answer you're looking for, but I don't understand that 100%.
Our family, we have 100 acres of woodlot up, actually where Chris is from, up in Chipman. And I don't know how, where that question came from, but I can't see anybody coming on our property and telling us what to do with our pits and our forestry. So I don't know what the answer would be to that question.
Again, I'm not real sure on the question, but I think I can read maybe some of it between the lines. Probably they're referring to the new definition that's enforced now on private land with buffer zones for a water course that's over 1 meter wide and it dries up in the spring, so there's 30 meters on each side that is being required. I assume that's it. There was also some talk with this, back to the silviculture, that private landowners that planted and would not use glyphosate would not be eligible for the program, but to my knowledge to date that hasn't come to fruition. So I'm just guessing at the question.
Okay, thanks, John.
Private land is you know, the explanation dictionary is private land. It's the land that you've worked hard for, your parents have worked hard for, your grandparents have worked hard for. So it's your land, and it's hard for government agencies to come on that land and basically tell you what you want to do with it. So this is a common sense. There are barriers in place. Barriers are placed along streets and highways where it goes from the middle of the road back upon your property, and it's owned by the government, and that's kind of common knowledge, but not a lot of people know that from the side of the road back when there's ditches there. So at the end of the day, it's common sense that private land is private land.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, gentlemen, our next question will begin with Ian, John, and Bruce, and it has to do with labor shortages in the province. So the question that's posed: with the major shortage of labor in the province willing to do manual labor, how do you change the percentage of private wood under owner's share? This causes a catch-22. The wording on this is a bit...
I don't have an answer to that. I don't even know with that one.
Yeah,
No.
Okay, all right. All right, we'll move on. If somebody wants to change the wording on this, it's a little vague.
Chris, I have a question.
Sure.
The question is, since there's such a major shortage of labor now, a lot of businesses, we can't get employees. How would you change the percentage of the private real owners increasing if you can't get the labor to cut it?
Well, one thing, I don't know if you watched the news lately, but the Liberal government put forward a $14 an hour minimum wage. That will retain workers. I know for on our farm too, as you well know, you're a farmer as well, people come and go because they feel they get to, you know, minimum wage, you pay them $12 or $13 an hour, they don't feel it's good enough for the work they're doing. But with the $14 an hour minimum wage over 4 years, I think it will help. I know for us it will retain more people because I've worked for people my whole life, and I'll say another thing, this is the longest job interview I've ever gone through. Yeah. So anybody I've ever worked for, you know, they start at minimum wage, and I found there was no incentive to do any better. But with this $14 an hour, and some parties have different platforms they put forward, I think it'll help small businesses like myself and yours and everybody else. Thanks for the question. That's a good question.
Certainly most people want money when they work. And so how do you retain those people, or how do you get people to work? Well, if you're getting 1980 prices at the end of the day as a contractor or a producer, how can you pay a decent wage to your employees? You just can't do it because the numbers just aren't there. So the only way to get and keep good help is to pay the good help. And you can't pay good help when you're making peanuts.
The backbone to the province of New Brunswick is small business. I believe it's between 85 and 90% of small businesses are here in New Brunswick, and I can't emphasize enough how much they are the backbone of the business people in the province of New Brunswick. And I've had this conversation many times with different businesses of retaining people and trying to keep them there and offering them incentives, and it just seems to be getting worse instead of getting better. So it's a big problem that it's not going to be solved overnight. I'm not sure that $14 or $15 an hour is the answer. You're running a small business, you can probably pay what you want to pay that employee. If it's a good employee, then obviously you're gonna pay them better and to retain them. And I've been in a small business for a number of years around this area, and that's how you keep good employees, by actually paying them a little bit better, and it works out better at the end of the day.
Thanks, Bruce. Jim?
Thank you. I guess to answer your question, $14 an hour. If you offered me $14 an hour to go work in the woods, I think you were crazy. There's just no way. That work is hard labor, very intensive work. And for $14 an hour, I can see why there's a shortage of people. But when you look at the unemployment, the rates are in New Brunswick, there are people that are out there. But like Bruce was saying as well, and John, we need to increase the price that you're getting for your lumber so that you can pay a good wage to employ people at a higher rate. And I truly believe that if they do get a good wage, half decent wage, because $14 an hour, can you actually support a family on that? Can you pay for a mortgage? Can you pay for a car payment of $14 an hour? I hardly think so. But if you can offer a person a half decent wage, they're going to give you value for your money. But in order to get that, you need to get good market price for your lumber. And the only way to do that, again, is to give the private woodlot owners the primary source of wood for the province. Take the crown lands, that will be the wood that make up to keep our mills going. Because we do need to keep the mills going. We do need to keep these people employed to run the mills. But again, we need to pay people a decent wage. And $14 an hour is not going to raise a family. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Question 10, we're going to start with John. This evolves around the softwood lumber agreement, tariffs. This is prepared by a question that came from the audience. The Forestry agreement of 2014. So this individual laid out a few facts, and he states, or she states, one, 660,000 cubic meters a year additional crown wood was put in the marketplace, and we all remember that was in 2014. They have some additional points here. I believe they're implying that the harvest level on crown went from 4 to almost 5 million cubic meters. The direct factor is a loss in the exemption. So we all know that New Brunswick lost the exemption for U.S. shipments in the Maritimes. The other maritime provinces are still exempt. And the last fact is they imply that in the first 6 months of 2018, $40 million in countervailing duties have been paid to the Americans because the price of crown wood is too low. So the question that is posed, when will you take action to write a new Forestry Act that will create an operating authority to manage, harvest, and sell crown wood for the benefit of all New Brunswickers? This advice has been given by the New Brunswick Federation of Woodlot Owners and Don Roberts of CIBC at the 2010 Forestry Agreement. So, John,
just think of that $40 million that has been spent so far that we've given to the United States had been given to private woodlot owners for their wood. I'll bet you we wouldn't have any tariffs on us at all. So I guess from liberal and conservative governments, they would rather give the money to the United States rather than to woodlot owners and people of New Brunswick. But anyway, yes, read the Crown Lands and Forest Act. Would immediately open the act up and take the ability to manage Crown land away from industry. That's Fox in charge of the hen house. And we would set up a stewardship commission made up of all stakeholders. They would run the Crown land for the people of New Brunswick. And it would be an open and transparent, available commission that anybody could go to so that it would be run properly. I'll leave it at that. I think that answers it.
Bruce, is there anything to add?
Our leader has been very upfront. He's been talking to a lot of people, a lot of private woodlot operators in the last little while, and he's been very upfront that the 1982 Crown Lands and Forest Act would be open within the next month after he becomes premier, and he's been very upfront about that. He's been in the press about that, and as far as myself and my colleagues, we agree with it, that the 1982 Crown Lands and Forest Act has to be looked at, it has to be revamped, and all stakeholders should have a share in what they say in the 1982 Crown Lands and Forest Act.
Jim?
Thank you, Bruce. I was thinking about this over the next couple of days, and my thoughts kind of run right along with the question that you had today. And one of the reports that I had come across is a CIBC World Report on Brunswick losing, as I mentioned before, $100 million a year because of mismanagement of our forests. This was also backed up by one of the previous ministers. And some of the questions that he had mentioned, I just want to quickly run through these. The Crown Land Act was adopted in 1982 by Premier Hatfield, the PC party. Why is it not followed? The Crown Lands and Forest Act was developed and brought into more than 30 years ago. And still, is it the best option? The rural communities receiving benefits should be from the Crown Lands in their areas. How many forest-related jobs need to be lost in communities that rely on the forestry sector before we look at other options? What is stopping government from having an open and transparent discussion on how our Crown lands are being managed and looked at other options, if any, for the greater the benefit of the people of the province? Is it normal for New Brunswick to subsidize forestry companies to take our Crown land wood for a diminishing number of jobs when other jurisdictions seeing jobs are collecting revenue from their Crown lands? The people who manage our Crown land should not be the same people who are making money off of processing the wood. One of the other things that I have a question on, and this is a little bit off the market, but as I was reading through the Forest Management Act, I see a reference there to plantation. We have forests, but all of the reference is plantation. So does that mean that when we replant, we're only going to plant one type of tree? We're going to lose the diversity in our forests? What's going to sustain the wildlife? You know, these are all questions that we need to have answers to. And if we continue down the road that we have now, we're going to have one generic type of tree that is going to be fast growing, but it is going to be simply a plantation. We're no longer going to have forest. In the Forestry Management Act, there's actually a statement in there, and I wanted to bring that to your attention. This is the minister's responsibility, of the Minister of Natural Resources, to manage the natural resources of the province in the best interest of its citizens.
30 seconds.
Pardon me?
30 seconds.
So my question is that being done today? I don't believe so.
I know the balloon fiesta's in town and everybody likes to blow hot air sometimes, but me, myself, to give somebody a straight, direct answer, I'd have to have the facts in front of me, which I don't have, but I did mention to Chris, I would love to sit down with him sometime and go over the numbers, so I don't have an answer for that question. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. We'll be starting with Bruce for question 11. Not so much a question, I was slipped a note and somebody in the audience asked me if we could try to ask our panelists to provide party policy rather than personal opinions. And I know sometimes that's tough on some of these questions that maybe you don't know the background about, but I'll just share that for the benefit of our panelists. If you know your party policy on specific questions, if you can bring that forward, it would certainly be appreciated. And I think we have been hearing a lot of our party policy positions, but some questions it's hard to put policy forward if the question has never become before the party. So thank you, gentlemen. So our next question has to do with New Brunswick hiring a U.S. negotiator for the U.S. countervailing duties. So the question that's put forward, and we're going to ask Bruce to reply to this one first. The government of Brunswick has a softwood negotiator in Washington, D.C. that is paid $40,000 per month. Does your party think that this is a good value?
This was put in place against the PC party of New Brunswick's conversation that we had as a caucus. We think there's, and we know there's government employees that can do as good a job, if not better, than a negotiator at $40,000 a month. I'd love to make $40,000 a month. Wouldn't that be great? I think all of us in this room would love to make $40,000 a month, plus expenses. I mean, that's just $40,000 a month. So it's ludicrous that they're making $40,000 a month and really got no results from this in the last little while.
I guess my answer to that is for $40,000 a month, are we getting the bang for our buck? Have we actually achieved anything by having a negotiator from the United States? I don't see any proof in the pudding here. I'm sorry, but I don't have the facts in front of me, but from the outside looking in, I don't think we're getting our money's worth.
To my knowledge, this person that they hired, I guess they're the best of the best. That's all I know. So maybe it's money well spent, maybe it isn't. It does seem, I never knew it was that number. It does seem kind of high. But I know the Premier has been down to Washington with the powers that be, negotiating with the tariffs and with softwood. He's put that up front and center, and it still continues right now as the guy down south keeps rhetoric and making people fearful, or even the dairy industry, the lumber industry, and the conversations are still ongoing.
Taking a deep breath. We would not need a negotiator in the United States if successive liberal and conservative governments had not subsidized industry to a point that we are the only ones in the Maritimes that aren't exempt. Plain and simple. Back to that $40 million that we're spending down there giving the United States. Give that to private woodlot owners and we won't have any issue. We won't have any tariffs. We won't have to negotiate. My common sense gone.
Thanks, John. We'll be starting with Jim on the 12th question, and it has to do with community forests. The question that was put forward: what is your position, or of course your party's position, on community forests that are owned and managed by New Brunswickers? This, of course, is implying parcels of Crown land, I interpreting from the question. So the question is, what is your position on parcels of Crown land that would be managed by communities?
That's a good question, and I really don't have an answer for you other than say one of the things that we would do is that any Crown land that we have out there, the party would actually put this up for bidding, and it needs to look at all parties, whether it be corporations or whether it be private citizens. They all need a fair and equal opportunity to bid on that. That is actually being implemented in our platform.
Ian?
Again, I'm not an expert. I was not briefed on that question, but it is a great question. I know this gentleman here, he knows about the wood. He's a former minister, so I'll let these guys answer.
Certainly all Crown land should be for the people that live in the area. So now, should they have 100% control and take the government out of it? No, but it is their communities, it is their rural area, and they need to have a say in it. Right now, they have no say on what happens to their Crown lands in their area. So that's a no-brainer.
It's something that, like another question and debate on this with the stakeholders that has been going on for a while, and it hasn't got to that 100% of things getting done. I know it's still out there, I know it's still being talked about, but it just hasn't got 100% done yet. So it's something that, that needs to be done, but it's not finalized yet.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's the end of the prepared questions, or the questions I've got from the audience, unless somebody else has a couple laying on their lap that you want to hand Rudy or Pam. Are there any questions that would like to come from the audience? I can pass the corded mic around. Just a second. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Bruce, he didn't state your party's platform on the last question. Whether the platform or the party agrees with the community having access to someone.
To be honest and upfront with you, we haven't got our platform completed yet. It's kind of stay tuned. My understanding that's going to be coming out the first of next week. So that I'm not sure whether it's in it or not, and I'm being very honest and upfront here with you that I'm not sure whether it's in our platform or not.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question involves the countervailing duty. The Liberal government is presently spending a pile of money hiring negotiators to go to the states and negotiate the elimination of the tariffs. I would like to suggest that there is a better way for all of us, and Jim Bedford said that we need to negotiate what's good for all parties. But the private woodlot owners are being shafted. They have been for a good many years, but especially since 1982 when the Liberals took away the primary source. And then when they all worked out what gave them 20% or 25% more crown land, that was a nail in the coffin. Now, I have before me two sheets, an Irving price list for wood paid here in Sussex, and price list from Ledger Lumber in Nova Scotia for studwood. The price here from Irving's is $63.25 a ton. Now they do have bonuses, so you have to kind of include, I think there's about a $5 a ton bonus that you get with the Irvings if you sign a contract and fulfill it. So that would bring it up to $68.25 possibly. Now the Ledgewood price list I have here says spruce studwood is $85.25 a ton. That's in our neighbor province in Nova Scotia. So you look at it, and I checked this last fall on pulpwood, and it was about a $40 a cord difference in the price that the mills were paying Nova Scotia for pulpwood delivered than was being paid in this province. $40 a cord.
Question, what is bonus?
What's what?
You refer to the bonus, what is that?
Well, the Irvings have a program where if you're a contractor, take out a contract, and you fulfill it for so many tons by a certain time period, they will give you at the end, they give you $2 I think up front, $3 at the end of a bonus if you fulfill your contract. Okay. Now, my question is this, and it involves the countervailing duty, because $40 a cord difference in the prices is a lot of money. If we could get $40 a cord more here in this province, we wouldn't probably be here talking about some of these things. But my comment and question is this. I'm suggesting that if we were paid a fair price in New Brunswick, we would be like Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland. We would not have a countervailing duty. We're the only province in Atlantic Canada with a countervailing duty. So pay us the price and we'll be no countervailing. My question to you is this. Will your party force this issue on pricing so that we can get paid a fair price and we can eliminate the countervailing duty all in one process?
appreciate the answer, and I don't have a 100% answer for you coming back to that. It's something that you have a lot of things involved with. One of the things we did do, because I've heard a constant talk about only one place to sell your wood, and obviously in southern New Brunswick there's one main place to sell your wood, and then there's other alternatives. And I know in the Miramichi, it was a great day that we were able to open up the Arbeck mill in the Miramichi, and to provide another place to sell not only the private woodlot operators in the Miramichi, but the people around there. So I don't have a complete answer for you, but it's something that we've talked about before. Many conversations that we've had, and I don't have a 100% answer for you here tonight.
Yes, we had this conversation before, what, about a month ago? I give you the same answer. Yes, if I get elected, I would push hard. Thank you.
Yes, 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 and yes. Unfortunately, with the Liberals and Conservatives, back to a question earlier, but it all adds into this, is the party platform, and what both these folks beside me have to vote the party line no matter what. Okay, so it is all the party. It's not true. Give me an example.
When we did the Forestry in 2014,
Lost your job.
that's against that.
Well, Bruce, I didn't see you stand up in the House and say that. But anyway, so yes, we will definitely, without question, change the, and I mentioned all the ways we're going to do it, change the field so that private woodlot owners are treated fairly, equitably, and have the proper access.
Thank you. I guess the first part of your question would be yes, the People's Alliance is willing to make that the task. But how do we get there? As I said before, we need to, you just can't step in and force people to this is what you're going to pay. It has to be fair market value. So what are you going to base that on? Are you going to base that on, you can use Nova Scotia, but like Bruce said, here you basically have one potential buyer, right? So again, I believe that you need to sit down and have a discussion. You don't, when you force somebody to do something, like I say, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You need to sit down and have a discussion and say, look, guys, you need to be, everybody in the room here needs to be a winner. And the quick answer to your question is yes, we will take it to task, and we do want to get fair market value for your wood.
Hello everyone. I just wanted to thank you very much for holding this debate. It's been very informative. And I just wanted to let you know I'm here on behalf of 35,000 petition signatories. I'm here, I'm the representative of Stop Spraying New Brunswick, a group that has coordinated the largest written petition that was tabled at the New Brunswick legislature. 35,000 signatures from people all over New Brunswick basically calling for a ban to herbicide spraying on Crown land. Now, I know that the question was asked earlier, but it wasn't specific, so it gave a few of you a chance to answer with respect to farming. And we are not at all interested in talking about herbicides or pesticides when it comes to farming. We are only concerned about what's happening on our Crown lands and on the Ebbing Power right-of-ways, because those are public lands. And we support definitely SNB and some of the answers that were given here, that part of the issue is, of course, that Crown land has become the primary source of wood, and since 2014, a larger percentage of Crown land is being allocated to companies, and private land is basically being, the private woodlotters are losing. So that is our big concern. We don't like that, and we know that part of that is the reason why there's so much herbicide spraying happening on Crown land. So I have a few questions for you. One of them is the fact that the taxpayers are actually paying for this herbicide spraying program, And I do have a large version of the check that the taxpayers gave to the companies. Last year, 2.86 million of taxpayers' dollars went to herbicide spraying, and at least 2.4 million of that was on Crown land. So we are definitely saying, please, where do you stand? Will you vow to at least stop putting taxpayers' dollars on this program? And we also are speaking out of concern for our wildlife. We're not necessarily, I don't want to hear any more answers about Health Canada says it's safe. The concern of our supporters is we are losing our wildlife. We have a deer biologist who studied this for 15 years and has a report that I'm holding under my arm here that made it very clear that it's loss of food to these animals because of the habitat destruction that's happening. So I've got two questions. Will you vow to really work hard and stop the fact that we have to pay for this? And I'm just going to give it to the camera because we've got our supporters watching this whole debate. And also, will you do whatever you can to stop this application of herbicides on our Crown land and by any power? And will you also vote against amendments that would weaken any motion that's put forward? Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, and if I go back into the legislature, I believe it was last spring that we, PC party put in a motion to stop the spraying on Crown land until we had all the scientific, and I'm sure you're well aware of that motion that was put in there. It was debated, and it was thrown out. So we did make a statement on Crown land to stop the spraying on Crown land until we had all the facts about it. And that's where we stand as a PC party, but we get defeated with that motion. Thank you.
In response to your question, a very good question, the People's Alliance, and I'm reading here right out of our policy that will be released here the first of the week, underneath conservation of species, and this comes under Part B, cease herbicide spraying on crown lines that change the succession process, not allowing natural regeneration. The current practice needs to lead to the transition of forests to more single species susceptible to insect infestation, climate changes, and disturbances. Increased emphasis on partial and sheltered wood cutting practices to raise the ability of trees to reach their mature and economic potential.
That is a very good question, and thank you for your concern. Maybe there's a way in the future that we could look at doing things differently. Somebody here mentioned about putting people back in the woods with thinning saws. Did I hear that correct? Maybe that's an option to look at it. I've never seen your data that you had mentioned. I've never seen that. But I mean, you probably don't want to hear this, but I said you go back to dairy farms. I don't know what we do for those 60 acres that we use it on. How many years, do you know offhand how many years this has been going on? How long they've been spraying the forest?
Well, it's been a few decades.
A few decades? Okay.
But the use is escalating because of the increased clear cutting and increased conversion, thanks to these deals that have been signed.
Okay. Yeah, I would seriously take a look at it, reevaluate it, and go from there. Thank you for your question.
I believe I've already answered the question straightforward, and geez, I'd like to see more of that. Not study, review, analyze, because we've got stacks of those in Fredericton like that nobody pays any attention to.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're getting close to our 9 p.m. shut-off. Ladies and gentlemen, are there any other burning questions? Mark?
Yeah, there's a question that's right out of left field. The price for the taxes for woodland, is the more woodland that you have, the cheaper the tax rate. In order to diversify the holdings, and particular private holdings, I'm thinking of one particular, two or three particular large companies, would you, probably this is not a policy, but how would you react to, say, a baseline of about 5,000 hectares by making the tax rate increase after 5,000 hectares, how can I say, logarithmically, so that would reduce the large landholders by using the tax method as a mechanism to diversify the ownership of private industrial woodlot in particular.
So are you proposing the tax rate would be higher for larger corporate holdings?
Just like with electricity, if you want the corporate sector, the more electricity you consume, the cheaper it gets. So that encourages people to use more and more electricity. So that with land, the more land you have, the cheaper the tax rate gets. So that encourages, for instance, the urban but have to have larger number of holdings. So in order to reduce the number of holdings, the size of the holdings, like you have in Austria, the largest holding I think in Austria is something like 1,000 hectares, but on the average they're around 100 hectares. So in order to arrive at such a position where you had a diversified small-scale woodlot owners that were supporting one another, you could use a tax mechanism to arrive at over time, to arrive at such a position or such a place. So that's, is that a left field? I thought maybe it's kind of interesting to see how people do it.
That's a good question too, but off the top of my head, as a business owner, the companies you're referring to create 24,000 jobs. Those 24,000 jobs pay taxes. Out of those 24,000 jobs, you times it by 10, there's 240 spin-offs roughly. They pay taxes. So there's your return on what you're trying to say of a higher tax bracket.
What you're asking is totally news to me. I had no idea that the more land you own, the less taxes you pay. I thought that the more you own, the more you would pay.
Well, it gets down to pennies an acre.
Again, I can't answer your question because I have no idea of those figures. Property taxes, I'll have to ask the rules.
Or the carbon tax. I don't have an answer to that. It's my understanding from the common day is the more land you own, the more tax you pay. That's the way I've always looked at it. If I'm going to go out and buy 10 acres of land and 2 years later I buy another 10 acres of land, I'm going to have to pay more tax on that land. And it's kind of news to me, but certainly appreciate the question.
Any other questions before we draw the curtain?
Can I answer that one?
Yeah, sorry, John.
Not that I can, because this is news to me too, so I guess we're all in the same boat, but again, fairness and common sense, that I don't care if you're paying a cent an acre and you have 1 acre of woodland, or if you have 1 million acres, you should be paying 1 cent per acre. Everybody should be treated fairly and equally. But I'm going to look into that because I didn't realize that.
Well, what's going on, if you look at it, if you look at your tax bill on your woodlot, if you are unfortunate enough to have a small piece of woodland associated with cleared land and it's a separate PID, the rate you pay per hectare is exorbitantly higher than traditional large-scale woodlot. So those landowners that have fragmented parcels, maybe have a piece of farmland or associated with a piece of woodlot, and then have another smaller parcel. I know there's people in here that I've had this I see them nod, and I've had this conversation with them. When you look at the rate per hectare that those smaller parcels are paying, even though we all look at it as a woodlot, in some cases they're paying 5, 6, 8, 10 times the rate per hectare of a large-scale industrial property.
I assume you're talking about timberland versus vacant land when it's...
The definition of vacant land gets a little fuzzy.
Yes, that's...
Anything less than 10 hectares has an exorbitant tax rate versus something that's larger is something that's...
But all timberland that's registered that way pays the same tax?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. And so you can appeal your vacant land to get it put into timberland, I would say. Anyway.
All right, any other questions?
Yes, I'd like that question.
Give me the
Not
microphone,
really
Dave.
the question, but what I want is one of you gentlemen at the panel to read out the pamphlet that you have in front of you relating to the wood basket of New Brunswick. What I want is a comment, especially from the minister that was there before. How can we address how this basket is being used where we, New Brunswickers, own 80% of all the fiber in the wood basket? So what I would want is Mr. Northrop to read it out to the audience, and I would like his personal stand on the issue because he has an experience into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean-Guy, for that question. And New Brunswick wood basket, it's over 14 million acres. It's industrial freehold is 20%, private woodlots 30%, crown land, public or corporate is approximately 50%. And who owns the wood basket in New Brunswick and who controls the wood basket in New Brunswick? And I know we've had many conversations about this. We've agreed to disagree, disagree to agree, and I certainly appreciate what you've done in your lifetime as far as the private woodlot operators. I've always enjoyed the conversations that we've had. I can remember being in the Miramichi quite a few years ago and getting this information, and I admire your dedication to the Miramichi wood basket, and I actually have it up on my wall. I never forget about you, Jean-Guy. It's something that we would really have to take a look at as to how the land base is here in the province of New Brunswick, and obviously this says the percentage of what's here, and the wood basket, it has varied obviously in the last few years, in the last few decades, with the number of mills that have closed down and the number of licenses that have gone elsewhere. So do I have a magic wand answer to this, Jackie? No, I don't, and I'll be very honest and upfront with you. But it's something that we would definitely have to take a look at to see how we could improve it. And thank you for the question.
I think we should give the gentleman a round of applause for being passionate about his province.
Thank you, gentlemen. Gerald, you got one more burning. It's got to be quick. Not just a question, not. Just a question.
Thank you very much. That was going to be a quicker question than the last.
Easy.
Our province here in Brunswick, I'm just giving a generality. Bruce knows better than I do. Our crown lands, the decisions of how mills operate and their licenses and all that stuff that go into crown lands, that's all exclusive. I can't go in there. But anyway, it's negotiated by the mills on one side of the table and the government, it might be the DNR, it might be Bruce, I don't know, his helpers, negotiating how they're going to administer the crown lands for the benefit of the mills for employment. My question is this: if elected, your government, will you follow other provinces in the administration of the crown lands? And here's how it goes down. They have a board of management, and here's my question, from successive liberal and conservative governments that have refused to follow the lead of other provinces in creating a more diversified, balanced, natural resources board of management with members from private woodlot owners, industry, environmentalists, biologists, Department of Natural Resources, and others to create a more fair and equitable Crown Lands Act. So would you broaden your administration to include other people besides mills and government in secret?
To answer that simple, Gerald, yes. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about that. But things change in the wood industry, and you know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there was all kinds of mills in New Brunswick, and you kind of had your choice where you wanted to take your mill, and you could negotiate back and forth. But unfortunately, nowadays, you really don't have that choice to do that with the limited amount of mills that are there. And I've had many meetings with different kinds of groups, and I've actually been misquoted by some of the groups that were in the room that I was going to keep the conservation area at 28%, and that has never been my say. I've always said, and I spent 3 years at this, 3 long years, and it was, if we did it, it would go down to 26%. But obviously, we sit in the room today, and it's down to 23%. So, yes, Gerald, I would have no problem whatsoever of including all the stakeholders.
If you had that kind of a board of management then, you wouldn't have been fired.
Anybody else like that?
And that's very, very true.
I already answered that question in the previous question, Gerald. The Green Party would have a Forestry Stewardship Commission started immediately and take Crown forests away from industry, and have all stakeholders as part of that, including industry, as part of that commission. But chicken in it?
Anyway, I'll give you the same answer, Gerald, I gave you a month ago. You're very thorough with your questions. I weighed in. But yeah, I would do the same thing if I was elected. I'd push it forward and look at it. Thanks for your question, Gerald.
To answer to your question, the People's Alliance would turn the management of the forest back over to the Department of Natural Resources, not the company that is going to process it.
Thank you, gentlemen. At this point, if there are any closing statements, we'll give you a couple of minutes before we wrap up. Jim, any last comments that you would like to say to the crowd before we adjourn for the evening?
I'd like to thank everybody for coming in here tonight. I'd like to thank everybody for coming here tonight. This has been an eye-opener for me. Like I say, I'm not involved in the forestry industry, and pretty hard shoes to fill when you have an ex-minister beside you that's been doing it for 3 years and probably wrote a lot of these agreements and whatnot. But I appreciate your questions, your good questions. I'd like to be able to hopefully answer your questions to your satisfaction. But again, if you have questions, you can reach out to me anytime. I may not have the answer for you, but I will get the answer back to you, and I'll reply to you. So again, thank you very much for coming here tonight.
Thanks, Jim. And if I could just put one line here at the end of the day, there ain't nothing fancy about Bruce Crawford. I'm a down-to-earth kind of guy. There's nothing fancy about me. I don't declare myself as a fancy, smooth-talking politician. But what I've done in the last 12 years is anybody wants to talk to me, I have no problem. And I always get back to people. I always phone people back. I send them the emails, even if they don't want to hear what I want to hear. And like I say, there ain't nothing fancy about me. Thank you very much for coming out.
I too would like to thank everybody for attending, and so if you want to lose money off our Crown land, and if you want to continue to lose jobs from the private woodlot sector, if you want to have plantations on Crown land to support fiber for industry with no wildlife, if you want to spray to kill off our natural forests in New Brunswick, you have liberals and conservatives to vote for, okay? But if you want a vibrant, healthy forest that creates jobs and that is good for the community and good for New Brunswick, please join me and other Greens in making a real change.
I'd also like to thank everybody for coming this evening. I apologize for not answering all your questions. Like I said, I'm not an expert on this subject. I would like to maybe meet with Chris sometime or somebody at the board, get up to speed on a few things. And I hope you have a good night. Thank you.
Before you take off, gentlemen, I'd like to call on our chairman, Mr. Bill Richards, for a few parting comments.
Thank you, Chris. I know that this is a very difficult position to what you gentlemen here tonight, and I'm really impressed that you showed up in the first place and then bravely addressed all questions that were put your way. But the meeting probably wouldn't have gone well without the expert moderator that we have here tonight. And I'd like you to just put your hands together. For Chris Spencer. Thank you very much, Chris. Not easy shoes to fill. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for everybody for coming, for filling the chairs, and for the candidates in particular came to represent their parties, by the way, which we're doing here today.